Maria, welcome to the Astrology Interview Podcast. Maria, I'm so interested in what you do because you run something called the Stellar Mystery School, which we're going to talk about, but also you describe yourself as a goddess astrologer, and that you trained in the Avalon mysteries, and that just got my interest peaked. So can we just start with that, about exactly what you do and what does training in the Avalon mysteries mean?
Yeah, that's a really great question, a really great place to start. Thank you. So for me, Avalon, of course, was an ancient mystery school. It was an ancient temple of the priestesses and druids. We know it as that sacred isle. And there are now modern day priestesses training there. There's an amazing priestess training that is bringing those Avalonian traditions back to life, that actually runs in Glastonbury. And for many years, I was drawn to this teaching. I was drawn to this pathway, and I've always been deeply devoted to Goddess. So it seemed like the perfect weave for me. So I did a 3-year training where I, really did some deep initiations and learned what it meant to be a priestess. But before that, I was also interested in astrology. So as I went through the mystery training, I could see these overlays and I could see how astrology was so supportive in helping people to understand the depth of themselves and, our collective journey through the great wheels. So as I was going through that process, I was also really recognizing how rooted traditional astrology is in patriarchal mythology. So I started to unpick,
It
and that was
certainly
how
is.
it began.
It's changing because of people like you, but it was, I mean, it was the patriarchy that, yeah, they were the mathematicians and the scientists and things. So just tell me a little bit more about the Avalonian tradition. What does that mean?
So for me, the Avalonian tradition is the priestess tradition of this land. So my teacher, Kathy Jones, she created a training that is based in a journey around the wheel. So we obviously take astrology into consideration with that, but all of the different faces of goddess as we go through the different seasons. So for example, in Aries season, we meet the warrior goddess, the solar goddess, and we go through, and as we're doing that, we're kind of reclaiming aspects of ourselves. We're really learning how to embody all of the faces of the divine feminine, how to hold ritual and ceremony, and just how to be connected with the land, how to be connected with the ancestral wisdoms, which have been held in Glastonbury. I'm sure you know Glastonbury. It's a very magical place. Oh, the cat's just coming to say hello.
Yeah, mine's just about to leave up as well. I don't mind having cats. I'm not sure the viewers don't either.
Oh, Twinkle, she's determined to come. Let me see if I can pop her on my lap.
Yeah.
This is Twinkle. We've got Lilith as well, who's a little bit
Oh,
older and a
Lilith.
little bit more grumpy. But yeah, it's a reclamation of the old goddess worshipping traditions of our land.
Yeah. I
Um,
notice you call you go back to the original name of the land, which I love, which is Albion. And just tell me a little bit more about your relationship with the ancient traditions then of Albion. And for people that don't know what that means, could you explain that? The cat's great, by the way.
Very funny. I was teaching about Leo at the weekend with the students, and she was doing this all weekend. She knows it's Leo season. She
Yeah.
wants to get on the camera.
Yeah.
Um, but I love to call this land Albion because I love to call things by their ancient names and think about the ancient tongue. And for me, this land is so sacred. We have these amazing serpent lines which run through her body, these amazing dragon paths or ley lines, which connect these amazing stone temples, these ancient stellar observatories. So for me, this land of Albion is a place where the cosmos is mirrored on the earth. And it's for me visiting these places, which is also part of the work I do, is a reclamation of these ancient practices that we have become so disconnected from. And I like to think of this pathway as archaic, but also Aquarian and very visionary as well. So it's, for me, it's remembering the old ways to help us to move forward in the future into this new kind of Aquarian energy of community and connection with the cosmos again.
Yeah, and it's bringing back that sense of the sacred, the sacred feminine, which has been missing. And I think I think there's such a yearning for it now. It's very interesting because I was talking to Amanda Walsh from the Astrology Hub, and she's opening up a lot of work to do with for young women in ritual. And I'm just
Mm.
curious about how young, particularly young women, want to bring back the sacred ritual into their lives. And I just wondered how you're experiencing that.
Yeah, I think it's so important, isn't it, for us to reconnect with these ancient practices that reawakens the feminine within us and therefore reawakens it on the planet. And it's so beautiful to see these women that are stepping into that. And for me, astrology really plays a key role because it aligns us with the cycles of life that we see in the feminine body. It reminds us of the cyclical nature of life itself. And also, it helps us to align with the rhythm and pulse of our own being and our own psyche. So for me, the cosmos is something that we really embody, and the archetypes of the wheel are something we really embody as we go through life. So I feel people understanding the feminine archetypes in their birth chart is such a gift because it helps them to know who they are. Yeah.
And I think it also realigns us with the concept that the earth is, with James Lovelock, Gaia
Yeah.
energy, the feminine energy, and
Yeah.
it's and that deep receptivity, that the womb that holds us in our the kind of the, I want to say, the suffering of the human condition, because we do need to be mothered through it, because it's not easy being here, as we probably, I'm sure that we both understand. The one thing that I love about what you say on your website is that you talk about that the work that you do is really bringing back this profound understanding that life is about destruction and creation, and there's a constant evolutionary process, a constant cycle of the great, I call it the great cycle of life and death, are going on. And I just feel like we're so in this world, we're so attached to not dying, and the fact that the
Yeah.
sacred feminine is all about that, and it tunes us back into our menstrual cycle.
Absolutely. And I think that is the gift of goddess, and particularly this kind of cosmic creatrix goddess and Gaia. We see these cycles, don't we, where we're looking at our own astrology chart or we're looking at the cycles in the collective. We're looking at the great aeons of time, perhaps the cycle of the great ages, and we know we have this deep understanding that there is this death and rebirth cycle that we are all continually living through. So I feel astrology helps us to lean into that.
Mm.
Astrology helps us to flow with that instead of resisting it, and understanding this kind of almost like a process of conscious destruction where when things have come to their end and when it's time to transform. And we are this bridge, and we can use this astrological language to help people to understand and be at peace with that, I think.
Oh, completely. I think it that's part of the great healing for me, is actually is really understanding and embracing our mortality in whatever context that our life is, we've been given to experience our life. And until we do that, I believe that we never fully engage in life. But once we understand that there is a organic ending to our physical life, whatever you believe that what happens afterwards, then I think there's this process of really leaning into life and actually absorbing the great mystery of it, because life is great mystery.
Absolutely. And I really feel, again, that Goddess really gives us permission to experience that fullness of life, the agony and ecstasy of being alive. I often call it the Babylon frequency or the Venus frequency.
What do you
And
mean by that?
so for me, the goddess energy, particularly that is Venus or Inanna or Babylon, she's had many names throughout the aeons. And I quite like the name Babylon, actually, as we're going into this new Aquarian aeon. And for me, she is this balance of dark and light. She gives us full permission to embrace both the shadow and light and to open to every experience and to really be present with all that is. As you said, the recognition of death reminds us to be alive. And for me, that's very much this kind of Taurus Scorpio polarity in the chart. I've got 3 planets in Scorpio, so I'm quite Plutonic. And for me, that meditation on death and this kind of template that astrology gives us, knowing that everything comes to completion and everything is reborn, I think gives us this deep permission to be in the moment,
Yes,
to
and
be
to
with what is.
yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. So Maria, tell me, as a child, were you attuned to this? Did you feel like you were different from other kids around you, or how? Because you also talk about this the concept of being a star seed,
Mm.
and I'm really interested in that. Uh, um, Having a feeling quite empathetic towards what that means. And I just want to ask you about what it was like for you as a child when you're so attuned to what's going on for you with the Divine Mother.
Yeah, that's a really interesting question as well. And I have always felt different. I'm an Aquarius rising too, so a lot of planets in the 11th house as well. So quite attuned to the cosmos from an early age. But I think, like many of us who find the priestess pathway or who are drawn to the mysteries and the deep feminine, there was also quite a traumatic start to my life, which led me at a very early age to begin reading about Goddess, to begin reading about different occult practices and, deep mysteries. And I was also very fortunate because my mum, always had an altar in the house. She's always been aware of Goddess and, reading tarot cards and things like that. So it was always there for me. But I feel that those experiences in early life are often a catalyst. You start to transform yourself, and then naturally you want to share what you're learning with others, and it comes through you in the way that your birth chart designates, I think.
I think we're all here to help, and well, I think we're all here to help each other, because my whole philosophy is we're all in this together.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But tell me more about this concept of star seed.
Yeah, so for me, I think perhaps we're all star seeds. Some of us are maybe a little bit more aware of it than others. But for me, when I think of a star seed, I think of us as a soul spark, as a spark of star fire, birth from the mother, birth from the great cosmic womb. And I think those of us who really feel that star seed energy are often also quite old souls, where we've been here since the beginning times. We remember the first turn of the great aeon, and we've had these incarnations and all of these different ages. I find a lot of people really resonate often with those Avalonian mysteries or Egyptian or Babylonian mysteries. And I feel like those of us who are star seeds are the ones that have kept that connection to the cosmic consciousness.
Mm. When,
And
when I was reading your website, I actually felt quite tearful because you used language which really resonated with an ancient part of who I am. So I was really curious about that sense of being from we're made of stardust. I mean,
absolutely,
that's physics. But
yeah.
then that obviously carries a profound memory of ancient times. I mean, do you feel like you are attuned to, let's say, Atlantis or Limora or Mu, or do you feel like that isn't where you're from?
Absolutely. I feel that many of us have had these incarnations in what we call Atlantis or Mu, and we remember these times where we did live in harmony with the cosmos, where we did live in harmony with Gaia, where these great stone temples were erected. And I think those of us who are star-seeded have journeyed through the aeons, and we've also witnessed these cycles of creation and destruction. And for me, I feel like that's why we're incarnated now at the edge of this Aquarian aeon, to reclaim and bring back these mysteries, because humanity is on this precipice again. And I feel like that's the journey of the star seed in many ways, is to be the holder of the seed of memory.
Do you feel like you have been here when humanity was also on in the past, another precipice? Do you feel like that's why you've incarnated again? It's kind of like, oh, here we go again.
Absolutely. And I find a lot of the women who are drawn to my work feel the same. We remember standing on the edge of these great aeons. We remember reading the stars. We remember reading the prophecies and omens and telling people what was to come, helping them to choose the higher timeline, a little bit like the prophetess Cassandra in the Greek mythologies. But I remember those times, I remember Delphi, I remember Avalon, I remember Mona. Anglesey is another deep memory that's really coming to awareness for a lot of people at the moment as well, I think, at this time.
So having been so acutely attuned to this, how do you deal with inverted commas normal life, or do you prefer to kind of just protect yourself?
So for me, what helps me to be in normal life is that connection to Goddess. It is that practice of embodiment, of allowing myself to be present with everything. Um, and also, having an early life like I did has probably made me quite a good transmuter of energy. So I like that Scorpio archetype of the alchemist too.
Yes.
But also I think it's practicing Virgo medicine, where it's making the mundane sacred. It's really including that daily ritual, that daily practice, trying to see that sacredness in everything rather than having this kind of separation.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
we would say walking your talk, that you embody that in everything, so that you're a living embodiment of what you teach and what you believe.
That's
Yeah.
the that's the goal. I'll let you know if I get there, but that's
It's tough though, isn't it?
yeah, that's the ideal, is to just kind of welcome the beauty and terror of everything and just be
Yeah.
present with it. But that it's a practice. It's an ongoing practice.
I think I was talking to somebody actually just yesterday about this. I think that a lot of us are acutely here to learn about the human condition. And so we're coming through with I don't know if this resonates with you, with a mission. And at the same
Yes.
time, I'm trying to understand what it is like to be in this human body in this time, this incredibly tense as you say, standing on the precipice of something that none of us really know is how it's going to turn out. We just know that it's a huge amount of tension. And I think the tension within us is this learning about the human condition at the same time thinking, do you know, no, I know I'm something else as well. Does that make sense to you?
Absolutely. And the image we often use in the mystery school is that of the pillar of the temple, where you're kind of holding it solid, but you are this bridge between the above and below. And I think that's where those Venus mysteries can be really important as well, because she really does teach us how to be embodied, how to, hold that energy within the physical, and really connect to that deep femininity within ourselves that is attuned and understands these cycles in a way that we perhaps haven't perceived before. So for me, she is a definitely a key archetype that helps with that embodiment practice. And
The whole
just
concept of Venus.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm so curious about Venus's dance in the sky with the sun when she creates the pentagram. So
Mm,
it feels like that we embody that when we wake up to what Venus means to us, because obviously we're all carrying it in different ways.
yeah.
We wake up to the archetype of carrying the actual pentagram that made by Venus. That's deep magic.
It is, and that's actually one of my daily practices, is working with the pentagram actually, because I feel like the pentagram is that kind of sacred geometry that balances all elements, right?
Yes.
So we are all of those elements, the planets are all of those elements, the earth is all of those elements. So there's something about that, I think, which is perhaps where the association of Venus and harmony comes from, that harmonious Libran aspect of Venus, bringing all aspects of the self into balance.
Yes, and
Mm.
that's such a challenge. I wonder, and I wonder if it's always been this challenging.
I think maybe there are timelines or incarnations where it's been a bit easier, because I think this is me coming in on a Sagittarius South node as well, but I think many of us have had incarnations where we've just been in the temples.
Yes.
We've just been in service. We've been doing our daily devotions. We've lived that life where we were able to be without too much challenge, this embodiment of goddess. And it's much more difficult to do it in the 3D world, isn't it? It's much more difficult to do it now. We've got Facebook to scroll through every 5 minutes,
Yeah.
and, you know, continual messages going off on the phone and distractions. So I think those of us who are incarnated and do recognize that we're on a precipice, we are really on this initiation edge, aren't we? This is really the lifetime where it all comes into practice.
I think it is. And I think it's about, in my own experience, it's really about trusting great mystery, because I don't know.
Yeah,
We can read the charts, we can do whatever, we can do all our rituals, but
yeah,
at the end of the day, great mystery always wins. That's in some respect. And whether that is taking us through the darkness, with Pluto in the under, you don't call you don't refer to Pluto like that, do you? You call going into the underworld. Um, I'm not sure how to pronounce it. Eriskigal?
Ereshkigal.
Oh,
Yeah, that's an
Ereshkigal.
artist.
Sorry,
Yeah,
Ereshkigal. Yeah, whether it's that or, great mystery takes us there. But as a collective, as well as individual, I'm a great believer in the holon, the rim of the wheel needs the spokes to work. So tell me a
absolutely.
little bit more about Ereskigal then, and where, is it a he or a she?
So this is a really interesting question. And in the Stellar Mystery School, we do redefine a lot of these male archetype. So obviously we know Pluto as Hades. But for me, as a Plutonic person, I redefined her as the dark goddess. And for me, Ereshkigal is the shadow sister of Venus. So I'm not sure whether you've heard the story of the descent of Inanna, you know, this very kind of first Venus Inanna myth that we have. And Inanna goes down through the seven gateways, the seven chakras, or the kind of seven classical planets into the underworld where she meets Ereshkigal, who is this dark goddess, but also her own shadow sister. So obviously we hear this mythology around the Venus retrogrades as well. And for me, it's that Taurus Pluto balance, sorry, that Taurus Scorpio balance, or we've got this beautiful embodied Aphrodite kind of lover
Yes.
goddess Venus, and then we've got this dark kind of
Yes.
sorceress, alchemist energy, which is so important in the feminine psyche. I think it's a suppressed archetype. So it's something that I really enjoy inviting people to dance with. So we do a lot of work with Ereshkigal and Lilith
Well,
in the
that's really
circle.
interesting
Yeah,
because when we repress that, it comes out as jealousy, envy, that really nasty side of that jealous Venus. So that so
absolutely.
to work with that must be incredibly powerful.
Absolutely. As a kind of scorpionic person and having Venus and Lilith conjunct in my first house as well, I'm really big on shadow work.
Yes.
I'm really big on this kind of what the old alchemists would call the great work, the reconciliation of opposites within us. And to me, that is the great gift of astrology because it helps us to see all of that. It makes us
Yeah.
confront, doesn't it? And then we can come into wholeness. We can bring back these parts of ourselves that we've shamed or judged or suppressed. Yeah,
I think it's stepping out of the denial, isn't it?
that's a
when
great
when you
phrase.
work in when you walk into the shadow. And I'm just so curious because obviously we've all heard of Jung,
Yeah,
Carl Jung, who
yeah,
really reintroduced the whole concept of shadow work. But of course, the divine feminine has been working with shadow forever.
absolutely. And I think, again, that's the great mystery of the feminine, isn't it? It is learning to accept all parts of ourselves, our shadow and our light, and the way that life is, these eternal cycles and rhythms. And for me, she is the the embodiment of that. And I think that when we cut ourselves off from part of ourselves, we lose our magnetism, we lose our Venus, we lose our essence itself. So I'm really big on allowing people to feel and express everything. I do a lot of work with a lady called Carolyn Elliott, who wrote an amazing book on this. I'm not sure you're aware of her in Existential Kink, but that's one of my
Mm.
go-to practices. So I'm in some training with her as well at the moment. And it is just about this reconciliation of opposites, because I think where we are in the collective at the moment, isn't it? It's this constant polarity, and we're constantly almost at war with ourselves and each other. So when we can welcome in all parts,
Yes.
that's where the healing
And I
happens.
call that the magnus opus, the great work.
And I love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. I'm just
Mm.
curious about then how you work with the moon and the sun.
Yeah, so for me, I reclaim them both as feminine. I know through the ages they've switched and changed. We've had moon gods, we've had sun goddesses. But for the purpose of working with the archetypical energies through the wheel with women, for me, the solar goddess is very much this kind of Sekhmet type archetype. So we work with her as this kind of great lion mother. And the moon is, for me, I work with her in combination with the nodes. And we really work with her as the archetype of Tiamat. So again, it's this kind of serpent energy, this water, this primordial womb energy. So for me, when they come together, there is that great alchemy. Yeah.
Mm.
It's that kind of healing of the inner world and the that allows us to shine the solar light.
Well, as I'm talking to you, I'm getting a really strong feeling of how masculine traditional tropical astrology is.
It is. And I think a lot of these archetypes are really unhelpful. As you know, when we have things like Zeus and Jupiter, that is, not a helpful archetype for women when you look at Zeus in mythology. So
It's interesting, and the great
yeah,
wound actually is the wound of the feminine, and it plays out in everywhere I go. Women have lost their connection with the great feminine, very male. A lot of women, I mean, there's no criticism, by the way, just an observation that a lot of women dress in a very masculine way, they walk in a very masculine way, they attack life in a very masculine way. And it's how do we bring back that I suppose the softness of the feminine.
it's such an interesting question, especially with Chiron in Aries at the moment, I think. And I think it's really women have stepped into that energy as a form of self-protection, out of maybe necessity, and it's not necessarily where they want to be, but they don't have had any role models or any understanding that can show them that there is another pathway. And I think you can be feminine but also very fierce as well.
Yes, absolutely. You can be without losing that feminine, the power of the feminine. And
Yeah,
I think that's what's been leached, isn't it? That what is right relationship with the power of the feminine.
for me the feminine is magnetism. It's that energy, when you think of the sun and you think of the astrological energy of Leo, and all of the other planets are just kind of radiating around her because of what orbiting around her because of what she radiates, this warmth and light. And for me, that is the feminine power. It's being in that place where you are so present with life that
Yes.
everything is just drawn to you. And then, you can also work with those Saturnian, because for me, Saturn is also a very feminine energy, and you can create the structure to
Mm,
hold it. But
mm.
also, you have to be attuned to yourself. You have to be magnetizing your own frequency. And I think astrology shows you how to do that.
Yes, and also setting healthy boundaries for yourself. And a
Yeah.
lot of us don't know how to do that
Yeah. And
because
that's
we've
more
been told,
Saturn.
yeah, we've been told what to do, how to think, or whatever, or very conditioned. And that's just the way life has evolved until now. And now it's how do we take I don't even know, I'm not even comfortable with the word power, actually, our
Mm,
something, and set those boundaries which enable us to stand tall as completely authentically in our femininity, in whatever context that manifests.
absolutely. And I think so many of us are cycle breakers in that way because we've been brought up by women who were very much in that kind of shadow Libra or Eve energy,
Yeah.
where it's that kind of people pleasing and self sacrificing. And now we've got this North Node in Aries at the moment, which is saying, actually, you have to put yourself first. And I think that is probably the key, is tending to your own energy,
Yeah.
tending to your own passion before you start to attend to other people's desires. So
I
it's
think a lot
almost,
of us escape from this great work by wanting to be fixers or caring for other people. So we don't need to look at our own stuff, but the journey starts here with us.
That's
their own.
so powerful.
Yeah.
So
Tell me
powerful.
more about the mystery school that you run.
So I love the word mystery school because I love to go back to these kind of ancient traditions and just from the remembrances I've had of these different lifetimes and these different aeons. And for me, the Stellar Mystery School is reclaiming the feminine mysteries of astrology. So what we're doing here is taking an initiation journey through the birth chart. This is what my great work is for the world. Is I work mostly with women. Sometimes we do have some lovely men join us, but we are taking a journey through the birth chart from the perspective of the feminine. So I am aspiring to guide anybody that trains with me through these archetypes so they can reclaim all parts of themselves, so they can be in this feminine energy, so they can remember goddess and attune to the cycles of the stars and the stones. And we do a lot of work with the stones and on the land as well. That's something we're really expanding into at the moment too, because I just felt a great call for us to go and work with the cosmic energies as the ancestors did in these great temples of stone.
Yes, and they're holding the
Mm,
memory, aren't they? I think some of the stones are so exhausted because we're not having communication with them. And I'm sure
absolutely.
in times gone by, I felt that there must have been an incredible energy, something or relationship going between us and the stones. There must have
Absolutely.
been. And
Absolutely.
the energy of the land, and that's what we've forgotten, isn't it? That that sort of sense, if you can't see it, it doesn't exist. You can't prove it, so it doesn't
Absolutely.
exist. And the Age of Enlightenment had its moments, but my goodness me, it just closed all the magic down.
It did. And I think the stones are just this eternal reminder. They have been here long before we came and they'll be here long after we go.
Yes.
They'll be standing for another 100,000 years and they'll maybe hold the memories of the work we're doing with them now in this timeline.
Absolutely. And that maybe that's it, that they are the record keepers, like the whales are meant to be the record keepers of the oceans, mate, and the stones are the record keepers here. But we don't understand how to access that. I mean, obviously people like you are doing that kind of work where you can. But it's just so important to do this now. I feel so pressed to open up to this ancient magic that enables us to step back into the divine feminine, but it's not in an attacking way. I think for me it's about how do we balance the masculine energy which we need and the feminine energy which we need. And I think
Absolutely.
the confusion, I don't know where you are with this, is so many people are now wanting to be androgynous because they don't know which way to go.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's one of the Aquarian shadows as well, that we're seeing this kind of androgyny in AI, which
Yes,
is taking the place of community and connection to the cosmos, which for me is Aquarius.
yes,
So I think again, it's understanding that these are polarizations that need each other. Yeah.
yes.
And I think to some extent we do have these energies within us. Some people are more Venus, some people are a little bit more Saturnian, depending on their chart. But for all of us, I think we have to recognize that that is how the new life is birthed, through the reconciliation of those two opposites.
Yeah.
And that is life force in motion. And whenever we polarize more towards one, we get out of balance.
Mm. So Maria, when you look at into the future, what do you see?
So this is a really interesting question. And I would say what I see and also what I remember from my soul's journey of standing on those precipices before is that at every turning of the aeon, humanity has a choice point. So the last one that we're probably familiar with is the turning from Aries to Pisces, where of course we have these Christianic mysteries. For me, Jesus and Mary were a magician and a priestess, and they were here to bring us these higher level Piscean teachings. But obviously humanity was directed down a different pathway, and we went into this kind of religious energy where we started to look outside of ourselves. We put the feminine to the side, we persecuted the feminine, and we chose this other pathway. And I think now, as we stand on the edge of Aquarius, we can go into this kind of technological, high surveillance, science as God type energy, which is completely alien to the feminine, or we can choose this higher timeline of remembering our cosmic selves, of reclaiming the mysteries, of returning to the womb of the star goddess, of recognizing we are all one strand in the web.
Yeah.
So for me, that's what we're here to do, is to help as many people as we can raise their consciousness so that we can choose a different way. That's my perspective.
Each one of us making that choice.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So how do people find you?
So you can find me through my website, Stellar Mystery School. You can find me on Instagram, Star Priestess. I've also got a personal Facebook page where I think there's some links to there on my website as well. You can find me there. You can sign up to the mailing list, and please feel free to connect in any ways that you feel drawn to.
Absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much. I've so enjoyed this conversation with you. It's been an absolute pleasure.
It has. It's been like we've had this conversation many times before.
Probably we have. And here we are again. Okay, thanks so much.
Thank you for having me.